This program contains scenes that have been dramatized, with special attention given to historical accuracy. The last battle of the Vietnam War.
Vietnam was supposedly over.
An American merchant ship and its crew are held hostage by brutal Cambodian pirates.
We need to go in and get the crew members back.
It's getting worse.
What starts as a rescue mission will become the fight of a lifetime.
We were pinned down fighting for our lives to get off the island.
Going in.
They were supposed to be the hunted, not us.
No place to go, nothing but dense jungle in front of us and water at the back. One thing's for sure, if I die, I'm damn sure taking one of them with me.
Spring 1975. The evacuation of American personnel in Saigon marks the end of the Vietnam War. As the U.S. pulls out of Southeast Asia, the Vietnamese and the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia fight for control of the small, sparsely inhabited islands that dot the Gulf of Siam. May 12, 1975. An American merchant ship unknowingly ventures into disputed waters.
At about 2 o'clock on the afternoon, Gulf of Siam time on the 12th of May, a unit of the Khmer Rouge Navy boarded and took charge the American flag container ship SS Mayaguez. They were armed to the teeth.
Commanding a U.S. swift boat captured during the Vietnam War and wielding AK-47s, Khmer Rouge fighters easily subdued the civilian crew of the Mayaguez. At gunpoint, the ship is forced to divert its course toward an island called Koh Tang. But in the midst of the takeover, the Mayaguez captain manages to transmit an SOS.
The White House learned of the incident. Alarm bells immediately went off.
The President has met with the National Security Council. He considers this seizure an act of piracy.
President Ford was very concerned about our image internationally, about our credibility.
America's world standing is at its lowest point since World War II.
We had been discredited. We had run out on our allies. We'd suffered an absolutely humiliating defeat.
The White House regards the seizure of the Mayaguez as a direct challenge to U.S. resolve.
These people that were on this ship were not military. These people were simply helpless Americans caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And our government had a duty to go get them.
Conditions in Cambodia, where the murderous leader Pol Pot has usurped power, don't bode well for a peaceful resolution of the crisis.
There was no recognized government of Cambodia. Pol Pot, who had been killing millions of their people, and the United States didn't have diplomatic relations with them.
The carrot approach isn't an option, so President Ford reaches for the stick.
The USS Coral Sea was within striking distance and was ordered to proceed to the Gulf of Siam as quickly as possible. The USS Henry Holt was also nearby and would be detailed to put a boarding party aboard the Mayaguez. The joker in the deck was the USS Henry G. Wilson. The captain of the Wilson, Commander Mike Roger, received on his personal shortwave radio in his cabin a BBC report indicating that the Mayaguez had been seized. He ordered all 4 boilers online to proceed by flank speed to the Gulf of Siam, committed the Wilson without any orders from on high.
With an aircraft carrier and 2 destroyers speeding toward the scene, the White House weighs its next move.
The most critical thing was to regain the captured crew. The best intelligence indicated apparently that they were on Koh Tang, but some might still be on the ship. So the question then was, how do you recapture the ship and how do you search the island? You've got to do it with ground troops. Well, the nearest ground troops are Marines on Okinawa and in the Philippines.
I had just arrived at Okinawa. I had been with Gulf Company maybe a week at max. And when I got there, they were out in the field playing war games.
We were doing a little bit of training, and all of a sudden we were called up very quickly for this operation.
It was slap it in the duffel bag, let's get the hell out of here.
C-130 transport planes take the Marines to Utapao Air Base in Thailand, where the Mayaguez recovery operation will be staged.
We were all excited for the opportunity. Didn't really know what was going on, didn't know what we were getting into.
A lot of these guys had just come out of boot camp. Up until that point, you know, the only thing I had to worry about was how to get gas money to go to the drive-in theater.
Turned 18 in September of 74, in May of 75 was involved in the operation, so I was 18 and a half. I didn't have any combat experience at all.
At that time, I only had a 9th grade education, and all the other branches of the service were requiring that you had a high school diploma, except the Marines.
May 14, 1975, soon after the Marines' arrival at Utapao, they learn of the planned assault on Koh Tang Island.
We were going to assault the beach in helicopters. Some would approach from the west, some would approach from the east, at a small neck in the island. West and east would link up and then sweep the island looking for the crew of Mayaguez.
The air crews were briefed that the island was defended by a small body of part-time fishermen, militia, armed only with small arms.
A small group of irregulars, pirates they were called, 18 to 20 people on the island max.
We weren't expecting to be fired on. They said, don't worry about that.
The Marines are skeptical of the intelligence reports, especially when they receive their armament for the mission.
Live ammunition, number 1, and then issued us hand grenades, number 2.
I had thrown 1 hand grenade in school, sure, but that was all the experience we had had.
When they started passing them out,
Sobering, to say the least.
So I knew right then and there, this is real. This is no longer playtime.
Uncertain of what awaits them on the sands of Koh Tang, the troops prepare for H-hour, scheduled for just before sunrise.
All the Marines were on a ramp, sitting next to our aircraft, in groups of 25.
Somebody had a portable tape recorder, and I remember listening to Janis Joplin. A lot of Janis Joplin.
And I was doing my pre-flight. One of the Marines there on the ramp said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you tell me where we are?" I told him we were in Utapao. He said, "Where's Utapao?" I said, "It's in Thailand." The guys didn't even know where they were.
May 15th, 1975. The Cambodian Khmer Rouge have seized an American merchant ship in the Gulf of Siam. The SS Mayaguez and its crew are thought to be held on a small island called Koh Tang. As dawn approaches, a U.S. rescue operation is set to launch from Utapao Air Base in Thailand.
11 helicopters were available for the initial assault, 3 to put the boarding party from the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines on the Mayaguez, and the other 8 to put the Marines on Koh Tang.
First time that reality set in for what we were fixing to go into is when them blades start turning. There's just a real whine to it when they first start those rotors up on them. I got that real funny feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Just as the helicopters are set to launch, Marine commanders receive disturbing new intelligence. Spy photographs of Koh Tang Island.
And what they saw in these aerial photographs was clear evidence of recent construction of bunkers, of protected firing positions, opposite both the East Beach and the West Beach. That was bad, but what they saw that was worse was open gun pits for all-around fire, meaning anti-aircraft heavy machine guns.
The island, in fact, was in dispute between Cambodia and Vietnam. They'd been fighting over it, and it was reinforced with a Khmer Rouge battalion.
The Khmer Rouge had occupied Koh Tang to defend against a Vietnamese invasion. and for that reason had put some of their best Marine infantry on the island.
I did not care if I didn't have any bullets. I would fight until I fell to the ground dead. There were other soldiers who would continue to fight if I was killed.
The men about to assault the island have no idea what awaits them.
Told us that they thought maybe there was a few irregulars, farmers, people that lived on the islands, all the resistance we were going to experience.
We were going to be hitting some heavy stuff, but there wasn't time to pass it on to everybody else. We were in such a hurry to go.
The operation is already running behind schedule. 5:14 a.m. 8 H-53 helicopters are cleared for takeoff.
I was on Knife 23. And on that chopper, there were 20 Marines from Gulf Company and 5 Air Force crewmen.
We load them up on the helicopters and away we go.
All of a sudden, here you are in an environment where that you figure, holy moly, I got a chance I could die. What in the hell am I doing here?
When we were heading toward the island, it was kind of pretty. We were in a helicopter, it was pitch black, and out the back of the helicopter, I could see the other helicopters all in line. As we got toward the island, daybreak occurred.
The sun had just started coming up over the horizon.
We were late.
So the helicopters are going to come in with a big red ball of the morning sun right behind them.
Bright, clear, could see for miles, could hear for miles. Everybody and their uncle knew that we were coming.
Knife 21, one of the first helicopters to reach the island, descends toward the West Beach to insert its Marines.
The beaches were extremely narrow and extremely rocky. The tide was coming in when the assault occurred. You've got 36,000 pounds worth of helicopter and it's not going to turn on a dime. You have to come to hover and then turn around, present the ramp to the beach, and then hope for the best. Just as they came to hover, they drew intense ground fire.
You know, there was Khmer Rouge in our landing zone. They've got all kinds of automatic weapons around this thing, and it's like they were sitting there waiting for us.
Knife 21 takes heavy fire as it tries to set down to offload the Marines.
Rounds coming through the helicopter, and the bullets were just ting, 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 and it was just, you could just see the sunlight. It was just appearing everywhere. And as he's turning, you could just hear this thing, and it was being hit bad. He finally set it down, and the gunner kind of made a motion like to get out, and we're all going like, hey, are you nuts or what? I mean, it's bad out there. And about that time, a round come through and hit something with liquid, and liquid started spraying all over the inside of that helicopter. It's time to get out of there, like, right now.
As Marines scramble onto the shore, bullets continue to pepper Knife 21.
They lost an engine just as the Marines were deplaning. Managed to get the aircraft off the island, about 3/4 of a mile out to sea.
Until finally it wouldn't go anymore. The airplane sank.
Thrown in.
Everyone got out with the exception of Technical Sergeant Elwood Rumbaugh. Rumbaugh apparently drowned.
As the surviving crew of Knife 21 bobs in the water off the West Beach, 2 more helicopters, Knife 23 and Knife 31, now approach the east side of the island. Amid small arms fire, Knife 31 tries to set down.
Major Al Corson and his co-pilot, Lieutenant Dick Vandergeer, were still in the air when they were hit by intense fire from the beach.
Knife 31 is rocked by a rocket-propelled grenade as the troops inside Knife 23 look on.
The inside of the helicopter got a real bright orange glow, and I felt a tremendous amount of heat on the back of my neck. And 31 was just in a ball of flames.
My wingman's airplane blew up.
Corson managed to get the aircraft down intact in the water. A number of Marines were trapped inside. Several managed to get out. Several charged the beach and were killed in the attempt. Lieutenant Vandergeer was killed immediately. The flight mechanic, Sergeant John Harston, managed to find a way to swim out through the door underwater, got several Marines out with him, and they began swimming out to sea.
Now, John Schramm's Knife 23 must set down and offload its Marines.
As we started to get into the beach, he started to back in. And right at that point, we get hit in the tail section. The Khmer Rouge was in the rocks with a rifle-propelled grenade. I remember hearing a loud crack and a bright flash and looking straight out the back of that helicopter and watched that tail section just fold away.
All of a sudden, helicopter started rotating.
I remember clearly thinking, I'm dead. I'm gonna die. There's no doubt about it. I'm gonna die.
But that time I think I lost an engine. I wasn't quite sure what was happening.
The helicopter lost control. And again, these Air Force guys were awesome. How this guy did it, I don't know. He set that helicopter, it's spinning that way. He set that helicopter down on the beach. I opened my eyes and realized that I wasn't dead. And I clearly remember coming out of the back of that helicopter and never even got my feet wet.
With the crash landing of Knife 23, half of the helicopters in the assault force have gone down.
One was shot down, leaving 18 Marines isolated on the west beach. Knife 23 was shot down on the beach, its tail rotor off. Knife 31 had been shot down and flamed, and the survivors were swimming out to sea.
It was a tough place to be a helicopter pilot that day.
May 15th, 1975. The mission to recover the SS Mayaguez and its crew has gotten off to a disastrous start. 4 helicopters have been shot down trying to insert Marines on the Cambodian island of Koh Tang. Under fire from heavily fortified Khmer Rouge gun positions, Marines are pinned down on the east and west beaches.
What's plan B? No, plan A obviously didn't work. 'Cause plan A was that there's a platoon-sized force holding this island, and we really don't look for heavy resistance. That's not what we got.
After we shot the helicopters down, we had to fight the survivors of the crash on the ground.
Here we are on the edge of the beach in a helicopter, a couple guys, and suddenly we're all alone out there. That was a fairly frightening situation.
John Schramm's helicopter, Knife 23, has crash landed on the east beach.
It took me a while to unstrap. I looked around and there was nobody left except myself, one of my flight engineers, and the combat cameraman. The rest of the Marines had run into the beach.
The back end of that helicopter was facing right into the tree line. We couldn't have asked for any better chance to get off that helicopter.
So we decided to evacuate the airplane and head for the beach. We're just busy running and zigzagging. Reminded me of all the war movies you ever saw with guys zigzagging across no man's land trying to get from point A to point B.
Schramm reaches the safety of the tree line, but looking back at the beach sees Staff Sergeant Ronald Gross lying in the sand.
Sergeant Gross got hit and went down on the beach. We didn't notice it until we got into the tree line. I saw him laying on the beach. We thought he'd been killed. Then we noticed that he was moving. He managed to get up and stumble a few steps forward. And he got close enough that then he could crawl to the tree line, and the Marines started taking care of him. They got him patched up, and he was in pretty good shape.
Lieutenant Michael Ciceri orders Larry Barnett and the rest of Knife 23's Marines to establish a line of defense and begin fighting back.
And at that point, I brought myself out of the shock. You know, I mean, I hollered at the top of my lungs. I said, "All right, boys, they know we're here. Let's set up."
On the West Beach, Fred Morris's platoon is locked in close-quarter combat with the Khmer Rouge.
His platoon was on the West Beach by themselves. His one helicopter was the only one there with about 20 people on it. He attacked and granted some very heavy fire.
We were very close to each other. There was only about 30 to 40 meters between them and the Khmer Rouge.
We're hearing all kinds of explosions. We took off with 8 helicopters. Where are all these people?
Reinforcements are on their way.
One of the critical turning points of the operation was the joint decision by the Jolly Green and Knife aircraft commanders to cease insertions on the East Beach and to shift the main force to the West Beach.
Already badly shot up trying to land on the East Beach, Knife 32 is diverted to the other side of the island.
The fuel lines were spraying fuel all over. They were taking rounds everywhere. And we couldn't do anything. I was in a state of shock, and I felt helpless because our training is you attack. There's nothing I could do in helicopter when the rounds are coming in.
Under fire on its approach to the island, Knife 32 stops to pick up the survivors of the Night 21 crash.
We went out to the water.
They did a hover pickup with hoist.
They were winching somebody up.
Having completed the rescue,
we went around the island again.
And then they sent them back in to drop off their Marines.
Jolly Green 42 is the next helicopter into the West Beach landing zone.
I was flying co-pilot that day, so my side of the helicopter was against the island. Once we got into the LZ, we started taking ground fire as soon as we got in there.
It was just noise everywhere. There was some very heavy fire coming at us with some very heavy weapons.
They started walking mortars up the beach. In front of us, I could see a motor going off maybe 50 yards down the beach. Then the next one would move up and was just walking up towards us. I remember telling the pilot, we got to get going.
I was on the tail end of the ramp, got Marines ready to go.
I remember looking out the side of my helicopter, just right out there, and I still have that memory. This one young Marine was just laying there, just flat on his back with his weapon tucked up tight, and this god-awful look on his face. Just as tight to that wall as he could get, man. He was hunkered down. The mortars kept coming in, and then it was really weird, and everything just went slow motion. I mean, you could hear the bullets hitting the airplane. We picked up and pulled out over the water, and just as we did, the motor went off right where we were, and it rocked us bad. We felt it.
He was shot up so bad that he limped back to Thailand.
In the meantime, Jolly 42's Marines find themselves in a firefight.
When we charged out, the beach and the water was behind us, and it was just green and trees. But there was fire coming at us. One of the Marines right behind me was shot right away. That's the first time I'd ever seen anyone being shot. I grabbed him, we took care of him and set him down, and I started directing the Marines to secure the perimeter.
The first wave of the assault is complete. Hoffman's men join Fred Morris, Dale Clark, and the other Marines on the West Beach, now relatively secure. But 25 troops, including Larry Barnett and John Schramm, are all alone on the East Beach and fighting for their lives.
The only troops on the ground were the survivors of the helicopter crash on the beach. We fought them.
We were fully expecting just to be overrun. Caught in a crossfire, no place to go, nothing but dense jungle in front of us, and water at the back. We didn't own a hell of a lot of real estate. So, to say we felt vulnerable was an understatement.
May 15th, 1975, the last battle of the Vietnam War. Searching for the captured crew of the SS Mayaguez, U.S. Marines have met tenacious resistance from a Khmer Rouge battalion defending the Cambodian island of Koh Tang. The Mayaguez crew is still missing, but Marines on board the USS Holt are set to take their ship back.
A reinforced platoon of the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines was deployed from the Philippines to use as a boarding force to recapture the Mayaguez.
The Air Force dropped tear gas, and the captain timed it just perfectly so that we just barely bumped up against it with our bow slightly behind their bow.
As the USS Holt pulls alongside the Mayaguez, Marines will attempt their first hostile shipboarding since 1826.
Marines jumped from the Holt, quickly went throughout the Mayaguez and found nobody there.
It had recently been abandoned, but no crew. Good news, we recaptured the ship, but the bad news is that Holt is fully occupied, towing the Mayaguez away from the scene of the action until nightfall.
While the Holt is tied up, another American warship steams into the Gulf of Siam, miraculously covering 1,000 miles in 2 days. The USS Wilson arrives on scene just in time to discover the survivors of the Knife 31 crash.
Immediately we saw there was 8 or 9 or 10 heads that were swimming or bobbing in the water. They were being shot at. Fire was going on continuously.
Thomas Noble and several other sailors from the Wilson are ordered to take the captain's gig to the scene of the crash.
They began rescuing these people. They pull them out of the water.
And then there was a couple of guys that were burned pretty badly that we had to be careful when we got them aboard.
With the wounded aboard, Noble's motorboat hustles back to the USS Wilson.
We take them back to the ship, and immediately after we got them aboard, someone reported that there was a large vessel.
A boat was coming out from the mainland headed for them.
We thought it was a gunboat. We had the guns ready and we were heading toward it, and then someone said, no, there are white flags on that ship. So we swung the guns back there and the boat came alongside. Then Captain Rogers screamed down, "Are you the crew of the Mayaguez?" The reply was, "Yes, we are."
Spooked by the strong display of U.S. force, the Cambodians have released the Mayaguez crew.
Captain Roger and his crew notified the powers that be that they had the Mayaguez crew.
Things started to evolve pretty quickly because then everything has changed. The crew of the Mayaguez is there on board Wilson. And we've got a whole bunch of Marines and other folk now on the island.
Marines have gone through hell to land on Koh Tang Island, only to learn that the Mayaguez crew was never there.
Unbeknown to us, the entire crew of the Mayaguez had been removed to the port of Kampong Som.
They were released about the same time the Marines were being dropped into the island.
Pinned down on Koh Tang's East Beach, Larry Barnett and his platoon hear news of the Mayaguez crew's recovery.
You're thinking, for me it's a mood issue. Great, they've got recovered. What the hell's that going to do for me? I'm fixing to die,
It was all they could do to hang on, defend their position, and hope to be rescued.
In the meantime, Marines on the West Beach are locked in a firefight with Khmer Rouge forces.
And things were happening real fast there. Again, I was in shock. Training was kicking in. We're getting a lot of heavy fire.
They were well dug in and very heavy weapons. The 12 millimeter and the 14 millimeter machine guns that just shot the crap out of the helicopters.
From bunkers along the beach, the Khmer Rouge lays down a deadly barrage of fire.
We got to do something. I started grabbing guys. We had 11 guys, composite assault squad. We got a couple hundred yards, and there was this bunker. We were taking fire. I could see rounds hitting in trees. I said, here we go. We're going to assault straight through. I threw the hand grenade at the bunker, and everybody stood up and charged. There were some bodies inside. There was a 90 millimeter U.S. Army anti-tank gun. And if anybody had made a beach assault, this weapon would have just shot the heck out of them.
Sorting through the contents of the bunker, Hoffman makes another chilling discovery.
The radio that I captured was on our frequency, which just amazed me. They could have listened to us and known what was going on.
Then every time a helicopter would start coming anywhere near, that whole jungle just came alive.
Without helicopters, the men have no hope of getting off the island alive. 2 choppers have already been shot off trying to extract the men on the East Beach.
Every time a helicopter would come in and get shot off, you know, your spirits would go up as they're coming in. You'd get ready to evacuate, and then you'd get shot off, and your spirits would dump again.
We've got to figure out a way to get our people off the island.
Noble and sailors from the USS Wilson are ordered to beach a small boat on Koh Tang and collect as many men as they can.
We had determined that we were going to be able to get 10 or 12 off of the island, but that another 10 or 12 would have to stay.
Lieutenant Michael Cicery asks for volunteers to hold the line.
I could not get my hand to go up. Nobody else could. So Lieutenant Cicery looked over at me and said, "Larry," said, "you have to stay." And my heart obviously went to my throat. I couldn't talk. The only thing I could do was put my thumb up. So Cicery looks over at me and says, "And I need you to pick 10 more people." And I looked over at the fellas and I said, "Guys, we've been through a lot today, but please don't make me pick you." And then Kushibari, his hand just went up real slow, and he volunteered to stay. And one by one, all the way down that line of Marines, everybody stuck up their hand. I didn't have to pick one man to stay, not one.
May 15, 1975. The SS Mayaguez and its crew have been recovered by American forces. But U.S. Marines are still on Koh Tang Island, locked in a firefight with the Khmer Rouge, and desperately awaiting extraction.
I had one Marine. He looked up at me as white as a ghost and said, "I'm fixing to go charging into this jungle, and I'm going to lose my mind when I do." I grabbed him by his chin strap, and I said, "You can charge anywhere you want to, but you won't lose your mind until I tell you that you can. So what you're going to do is you're going to lay right here, and you're going to watch that tree line. You're not here by yourself. We're all still here. We're all still alive. You know, keep doing your job."
Heavy Khmer Rouge gunfire thwarts a rescue attempt by Black Velvet 1, a small motorboat launched from the USS Wilson. 2 helicopters have also been shot off trying to get to Barnett's position. Stranded all day, the men are starting to get tired and hungry.
Things were not good for the Marines. They'd gotten very little sleep between their being yanked out of the field on Okinawa and arriving at Utapao.
And these guys were getting antsy, you know? Let's move, let's stay, let's do something. I've laid here for 7 or 8 hours, and I'm getting tired of it.
The Marines were either going to have to reinforce or extract.
If it got dark and they couldn't extract us, we couldn't stay there. We had to move.
A last-ditch rescue effort must be made before nightfall. Slow-moving OV-10s are mobilized to coordinate cover fire. Black Velvet 1 will protect the flank. Now, Air Force crews have to get badly damaged helicopters back in the air.
There was a blackboard that they were using to keep track of all the helicopter, all the call signs and the tail numbers and where they were and what they were doing. And pretty soon that blackboard started showing things like shot up, down on the beach, down in the water, and it was looking pretty grim. And one of those helicopters been shot down was John Schramm's, a good friend of mine. And that was hard sitting there, not being able to do anything.
Of all the strange things that go through your head, I remember looking down, or seeing a bunch of ants crawling around doing their ant business, and thinking that here we are in this life or death struggle, and these ants are just walking around. They don't care.
There's a certain amount of resolution that sets in with you. You know, I'm going to have to stay here on the island, and I'm going to die. But one thing's for sure, if I die, I'm damn sure taking one of them with me.
The men on the East Beach steel themselves for the final extraction attempt.
The extraction started with Jolly Green 11, commanded by First Lieutenant Donald Backlund.
As the helicopter came in, just like the other two, the tree line erupted. And I see 2 or 3 sets of black pajamas coming this way, coming right out to the jungle.
The Cambodians started opening fire on us directly.
I emptied my M16 just right in that same general direction.
The Khmer Rouge approached to within hand grenade range, only to be cut down by Jolly Green 11's guns.
After that, I turned tail just like everybody else, and I headed for that helicopter.
I remember getting to the back of the helicopter, and I don't know which Marine it was, but he grabbed me and just basically threw me into the helicopter.
Now, I know it probably didn't take that long to load the helicopter, but for me it seemed like an eternity, an absolute eternity. And Backlund held that chopper right there. I'm talking, man, this thing was shot up full of holes like a piece of Swiss cheese. And he held that thing right there till the last person got on that helicopter.
They loaded up, they were off.
The shock that we actually got off of that island was set in too. It's like, holy shit, I made it.
The East Beach extraction is complete. But on the west side of the island, more than 100 Marines are struggling to hold the line.
We had our backs to the water and the enemy at our front. And the forces that were there to be able to get us off the island were getting shot up and running out. It was getting very hairy at the end.
Khmer Rouge guns have kept more helicopters from getting in for an extraction. But this time, U.S. forces will launch a preemptive strike.
Gunny came around and said, okay, I want you to dig in. We're going to drop a bomb, and it's going to be a big one.
A BLU-82, Bluey-82, 15,000-pound slurry bomb.
The Daisy Cutter, which is the largest weapon in the U.S. Ordnance, they push it out of the back of the KC-130 on a pallet, and it comes down by parachute.
The bomb descends to Earth and blows.
It absolutely just shook the earth, and the sound was just deafening. And after that moment, the island seemed to got real quiet.
Now the extraction can begin. Bob Blau's Jolly Green 44 is already en route to the West Beach.
Without orders from anyone else, they simply launched off into the fray and arrived just in time to participate in the extraction operations.
There was 3 helicopters left, and we agreed that we'd go in one at a time. As we started in, we'd turn off all the lights in the helicopter. And meanwhile, it's getting darker and darker.
With nightfall, the Marines are almost helpless to stop enemy advances.
The jungle's alive, waiting for that helicopter and listening to the Khmer Rouge. You could just hear them creeping in, getting closer.
But they were working their way up to get in a position to fire on us.
We didn't have enough men to keep them from getting past our lines because you couldn't see them.
Flying blindly through the darkness, Jolly Green 44 finally manages to set down on the beach on its 3rd try.
Landed on the water, was taking a ton of fire, and I was so tired and so weak from the whole day I could hardly jump up to get on it.
A whole bunch of Marines got on and took off. It's a 20-minute flight one way to the Coral Sea, which is the closest carrier, where everybody else was taking their Marines.
If Jolly Green 44 follows the plan, there might not be enough time to return to Koh Tang Island and pick up more Marines still stranded there. Blau and his crew decide to improvise. Back from towing the Mayaguez, the USS Holt is only 5 minutes away. If Blau can offload his Marines there instead of the Coral Sea, he'll save precious time, but landing won't be easy.
The Henry Holt has got a very small helipad, and the H-53 is a very big helicopter.
Said, we've got to try to land. And they said, well, you might fit, but we can't take the stress of the weight of your helicopter. It's too big. I said, okay, fine. I'll land. I'll keep 50% power on the engines, keep it real light on the wheels. But we got to get back to the island and get another load of Marines. And I said, okay, you're cleared in.
and it's pitch black. There's no lights, can't see anything. There's no moon, overcast, no starlight, just totally dark. And this chopper is going down.
We'd never been trained to fly in the dark without lights, so none of us had any experience doing this. Bobby Bounds, the flight engineer in the back, bless his heart and his great eyesight, he talked us into that pad.
The tail end of the helicopter was actually over the ocean. It was so much larger than the helipad that he had put this thing on. And you got to realize the wind is blowing, the sea is going, and this ship is underway. It was an amazing feat of flying.
They managed to bring the nose of the helicopter, the door of the helicopter up against the pad so the Marines could jump out.
With the Marines safely offloaded, Blau heads back to the West Beach. Jolly Green 44's time-saving maneuver has allowed it to participate in the final Kotang extraction. Fred Morris and Dale Clark are among the last Marines evacuated.
We all owe our lives to those pilots. Those guys, as bad as they were being shot up, that took some real guts to fly in and get us out of there.
With the conclusion of the Marine extraction from Kotang Island, the Mayaguez incident has finally reached a resolution. The ship and its crew have been recovered, but at great cost. 41 men are dead.
The last 41 names on the wall, Vietnam Memorial, are from the Mayaguez operation.
I can't forget the guys who were lost in that operation. Those 41 are heroes.
3 of the lost men never made it off the island during the chaos of the final extraction.
Now, unbeknown to any of those involved, a 3-man M60 team from Echo Company had been left behind.
We didn't know who we had and who we didn't have.
Their fate has not been conclusively determined.
Despite tough losses, bad intelligence, and hasty planning, the mission has been accomplished.
Enough went right in that operation to rescue the Mayaguez crew, every one of them, and get the ship out of there.
Since then, no one has ever tried to take an American ship. It let the world know that America was still a force and a power to be reckoned with, and you don't mess with us.
An American has to have a sense that when they cross into foreign soil, that if there is a problem, that somebody's going to come get them.
We reacted effectively. It wasn't pretty, but it worked.
Many of the men involved would be highly decorated for their bravery.
Most of them were brand new, fresh-faced kids, absolute minimum training, and they went in there and they did their job and they did it professionally.
The heroics of the Knives and the Jollies kept all of us alive.
May 15th, 1975 will bond these men together for the rest of their lives. It's a day they remember with a mix of pride and dread.
There are certain portions in my life that it's almost destroyed me. There's other days in my life that I'm on the mountaintop and I can whoop the world thanks to that island. Sometimes I sleep good, sometimes I don't. Sometimes my wife has to grab me, I wake up screaming.
No, that day was probably the most intense 24 hours of my life.
I look at May 15th as my legacy.
I led troops in combat. I was an infantry platoon commander in the Marine Corps, and when the chips were down, I did what I had to do.
In context of history, it's a footnote. A lot of people call it the last battle of the Vietnam War.
For us that were there, it's a lot more than just a footnote. It's our life. It's our blood, it's our sweat, it's our tears. And it's always going to be that way.